unfortunately, it appears that corporate South Africa is not going to save South Africa, let alone you.
So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the news that Momentum has now come out against the NHI. Apparently, the NHI is a bad idea, which we already knew. Why Momentum has been silent for this long remains unclear.
Well, it's not really that unclear, is it? Because let us not forget, Momentum actually struck a massive BEE deal back in 2021, where they effectively gave 32% of Momentum to black medical professionals and to the labor unions.
There actually was some strategy behind this. And that is, would you know, Momentum tried to crook the system and thought that by giving away some of their business to labor unions and BEE deals, they would actually be able to benefit from the NHI. And it hasn't really worked out for them, has it?
So officially, Momentum has never said this BE deal was for the purposes of influencing the NHI in any way. But we do know a few things. Number one, there is no money for the NHI, irrespective of what the ANC says. So therefore, number two, if the NHI becomes a fund, well, then private contractors, i.e. medical aids, will need to be paid from that particular fund. So therefore, the theory is that Momentum was using this BE deal to find a way to make sure that they benefit from the NHI, either in administration or, of course, being a preferred bidder of the NHI fund in totality. But the government came out and said, you know what, private sector medical aids, we want to do away with you in time to come. As we saw the new NHI bill, the private sector is not really necessary for that bill to happen. So now Momentum has changed tact and be like, oh no, NHI is terrible. Which leads us to think perhaps the corporate South Africa are a bunch of muppets.
Now, what Momentum and Discovery thought that they could effectively do is be a, should we say, a secondary bidder. So what they were hoping they could do is go to the NHI fund, basically say, we want a proportion of the fund to redistribute through our membership services for us to purchase our own medical supplies or medical services. So what they could do is they could do bulk purchasing. They could say, well, we've got 200 members. Those 200 members, they all went to the GP for cold and flu medicine, and we've got a bill here for 50,000 Rand. Send us the 50,000 Rand. Now, the Department of Health said, well, we don't really see what benefit we have by engaging with you, private medical industry, as in the medical aids. All you are is an extra buffer from which the members of the state have to go through in order to get access to their funds anyway. So if all you're going to do is be a broker, isn't it more logical for us to engage with the suppliers directly and negotiate a bigger deal? Because of the idea of large quantities, a bigger supplier, therefore I've got a bigger market. I've got more purchasing power, purchasing parity. I can go out there and basically get you to drop the price. Basic market forces. The logic from the Department of Health is sound. The logic. But we all know how this is really going to go. And that is the NHI is going to purchase their cold and flu medicine at 1 billion Rand per dosage, and somebody's going to get a BE kickback deal, right? And they're going to bankrupt the fund.
So let's go back to the BE deal very quickly, because Momentum at the time said, and I quote, we started to look for the right partners when we saw the need to change in a transforming society, when we saw a dire need of transformation in the private healthcare industry to support universal access. So on one hand, Momentum said, we'll do BEE, we believe in universal access, we believe in transformation, and we'll spend a lot of money to make sure all of those things apply to Momentum. But then when the state wants to really transform the healthcare industry and nationalize it under the NHI, and Momentum doesn't get a cut from that, now all of a sudden they're against transformation. Now all of a sudden they're against BEE. Corporate South Africa has been following this model for the longest period of time, right through the apartheid era and now into the democratic era as well. If they get a cut, they'll support any bullshit that comes from Parliament. If they don't get a cut, they are against it, which is why we shouldn't put our faith in them whatsoever.
So the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is this. You need to remember that BEE was really a mechanism used by the mining industry to capture the elites of this country. It was originally there to get the ANC elite to become shareholders of the mining industry and therefore, through their political power, safeguard the interests of the mining industry. It is arguable that this is exactly what Momentum have done. We give away BEE deals, and in doing so, we secure patronage and try to provide for the security of the business in the future. These guys, as shareholders, surely they'll look out for the best interests of Momentum. Why wouldn't they, right? Political power, that's how it all works. This is how BEE typically tends to work in this country. That's why it only ever seems to enrich the elite, the politically connected. That's not by coincidence. That's by design.
But there's another element to this, Byron, and maybe you agree with me. Why are so many black millionaires and billionaires called tenderpreneurs? Well, the only reason is because if you have BEE and you let black people join your company by giving them shares, you actually prevent them from starting competitors to you as well. So it's a two-pronged approach, state largesse and also preventing competition, no?
Yes, I would agree with that. It is a great way to prevent competition. And as we know, in the medical industry, there's only 12 key players. The question that you then have to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, is why is the state and the private sector colluding? Why are they both trying to do one-upsmanship on each other? Why is there no separation of power between these two of these? And why is it that private sector does not seem to understand? It's not to become an extension of the state, but what it should be doing is to be trying to provide maximum shareholder benefits to its members, which is not what it's doing. And in trying to play this intertwining with the state, they seem to keep getting caught out time and time again.
Well, they only get caught out when they actually don't get a cut of the action. No doubt Momentum, Discovery, a lot of the other medical aids were like, yeah, NHI is a great idea. We believe in universal healthcare as long as we get a cut. And now they don't get a cut, they're saying no, NHI is a terrible idea and we don't want it. So essentially, the state and corporate South Africa are sort of entwined. It's a parasitic relationship for the best part, and it really comes to light when the NHI comes out and says all your medical aids are no longer needed.